In today's episode, we're talking about the label stealing artist royalties. More and more legacy artists are coming forward saying that they are not receiving royalties for streaming, etc., from the labels. We wanted to talk about that today, give you some insight as to what you can do to kind of make sure that your business is set up the way it needs to be set up so that you can get your money and get what's owed. We're Arkatech Beatz. We're talking about that today. If it's your first time here listening, thanks for subscribing to the channel. Make sure you do that. Make sure you hit the notification bells. Mike, there's a article running around right now, or a video rather, with Method Man saying that he's never received any royalties for his music. This is an artist that's been in the game for 20 plus years, multi-platinum artist, Grammy Award winning artist. So he hasn't got any streaming income. I want to play a little clip so people can kind of see what we're talking about, so that they don't think that we're making this all up. But give me 1 second. Let me just share that screen.
It's a lot to it. I mean, I think it goes way deeper than that, especially when it comes to IPs for artists that came from my era. Right. Because, you know, honestly, I've never gotten a streaming check for any of my music.
Really?
I've never gotten a streaming check for any of my music. Like I said, I'm still trying to figure it all out because there may be someone who can make a perfect mix of the two.
And listen, and there's an older clip of Snoop Dogg basically saying the same thing, right? And I think we've kind of touched on that before, and I wanted to kind of play that too because he's a little bit more upset about it in this forum when he was talking about this a few months back.
I mean, gotta get their shit together, cause I don't understand how the fuck you get paid off of that shit. Like, I mean, can somebody explain to me how you can get 1 billion streams and not get $1 million? Like, that shit don't make sense to me. Like, I don't know who the fuck running the streaming industry, if you in here or not. But nigga, you need to give us some information on how the fuck to track this money down. Because 1 + 1 ain't adding up to 2. That shit don't add up, and I have to say it. Because that's the main gripe with a lot of us artists, is that we do major numbers with streams and this shit, but it don't add up to the money. Like, what the fuck is the money?
Bro, he's absolutely correct, man.
Listen, the money is there, but you just not getting it. They're getting the money. So, you know, that's the thing that we have to really cover, and we have to let people understand that, listen, first people need to understand what's being generated. I think that's probably like the main thing. Like once you start releasing your own music, you kind of get an understanding of what's being generated from the master side, and then you kind of have an idea of what's being generated from the publisher side. Because at this point, when you release your own music, you own 100% of it across the board, so you get to see what exactly is coming through from the highest point. But first, let me just get your insight on it, because, you know, you and I have been talking about it in the background. And, you know, we got some of our own situations that we're going to talk about too, to let people know what the heck's going on in this thing.
This shit, I mean, we've been saying this for the longest times, you know, like who agreed to these streaming percentages, you know, who sat down with all of us. Like, it didn't happen. They just came up with a number and they said, that's it, that's what it is. And no artist agreed to this, and nobody signed off on this. And, you know, the record labels and the streaming platforms, they making backdoor deals, you know, and not only are they making backdoor deals, the whole entire accounting and auditing is so suspect. Like, you can't get a clear indication of what you are owed, you know. And if you're looking for them to tell you what you're owed, good luck on that. You know, and we've seen it. We've had record companies pull up the paperwork, pull up the numbers, the auditing, and the numbers are funny. You know, so I mean, so we'll get into that as well. But, you know, to Snoop and to Meth, it's and many other artists, it's really sad that the record companies, the streaming services, straight up robbing cats.
It's crazy because when you think about it, it's like it's designed to keep them in the dark because everybody that's like, can somebody explain it to me? Nobody seems to understand what's going on. And I hope what we can do is we can shed a little bit of light on what's going on and what's happening. So let me jump into one other part of the situation. I want to just kind of give an illustration here of what's going on as far as the hold on 1 second here.
Crazy.
Yeah. So we're looking at like for Method Man, right? If we're looking at his Spotify right now, we see he gets about 3 million, almost 3.1 million monthly listeners, right? And monthly listeners does not equate to streams, right? We want our viewers to understand that monthly listeners mean that that's how many people are listening to this artist. They could be listening to his music hundreds of times a month, thousands of times a month. Most times people listen to the same songs over and over again. I know I do. When I'm driving to the store, dropping my kids to school, we playing the same music over and over, day in, day out, right?
Right.
Some of the numbers I represent here is the Walk Wall at 196 million streams. He got the I'll Be There joint with 87 million. And this is just him as an individual artist. This is not him really with the Wu-Tang music, right? That's a whole nother ball game in that, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to also go into this little streaming calculator thing that we have on ArkatechBeats.com. And this is a music streaming calculator so that, if you don't understand what you are supposed to be receiving from the master recording end, this is a little bit of a tool that artists could use to say, okay, if I got X amount of streams on what platform, what am I kind of approximately owed, right?
Right.
Let's just take the monthly listener number. Let's not take the streaming number, but let's just suggest that the monthly listener number is the streaming number, right? And he's getting 3.1 million a month. To this calculation, it's showing that he would be owed over $10,000 a month, right?
Per month.
Per month, and that's just from one streaming platform, Spotify. That's not talking about from all the other Spotify, right?
And this is for one song.
Now this is one song. If this is what the song is generating, not that he's owed that. Let me reverse that. Not that he's owed that, but this is what the song is generating from
one song.
One song.
Let's be clear. This is just one song.
Not for the song. Excuse me. Let me back up. Not even one song. Okay. This is what his if we were talking about him getting only 3 million streams a month for one, right? For one record, it would be generating about that much money in terms of if he has 100% ownership of the song, that's what the label is supposed to be generating, and then the label is supposed to now take that money and break it down based off of whatever's in your contract percentage, what it may be, right? So if you're at 15% royalty rate, if you're at a 10% royalty rate, of course you would be, owed 10% of that, or so forth and so on. But you just need to kind of get an understanding of that. If a person is having that many streams a month, and this is just his monthly listeners we're going off of, he could be doing tens of millions more streams a month because he has a very, very long catalog. He has a very long catalog. So I can be expecting him to be doing tens of millions of streams a month as a legacy artist who's been part of a major group. He could be making, hundreds of thousands of dollars a month as an overall, and then of course that needs to be broken down, right? Now, if he's not set up to collect the rest of his money, which is if he's not collecting his publishing money, he will still need to make sure that he is signed with ASCAP as a performance right organization. He would still have to make sure that he has somebody that's collecting the mechanicals. That could either be through a song trust or through the MLC, right, or the Harry Fox agency, to make sure that those things are set up so that he can be getting those kind of monies, right? That's on the publisher side.
Mm-hmm.
On the master side, he has to go through the whole artist royalty situation. Yep. And that's what nobody likes to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about that if you have a record deal, if you're an artist, you have to basically initiate the payment of your royalties. You're just not going to just, blanket send it to you anymore.
So,
Especially
wait,
if you're a legacy artist.
so basically, you're saying that if you're owed money from the label, um, you technically have to kind of sign up for it.
Yeah. You have to basically initiate that by creating an artist profile.
Okay.
Like the label will have something that has your some sort of accounting with your records and so forth. But now you have to attach an entity to that,
Right.
right?
And
So
and your payout information.
payout information, and you have to create all of these things in the back end. You got to give them your EIN or your social security number. You have to create all of these things. Then they got to reconcile all of the numbers. You would think that it would be reconciled ongoing, but they're going to then reconcile all of your numbers. They're going to show you what your advances were. Then you have to reconcile that to make sure that all of your advances show up. Make sure that they're at the right rate. Making sure that you're getting the right rates in terms of streaming rates versus physical copy rates. Because remember, he's a legacy artist that was out before streaming. So he has to go back in and make sure that that's negotiated because that's not part of his contracts. So these are all different types of things that he has to initiate or somebody has to initiate on his behalf to make sure that, okay, listen, he has X amount of million records, so X amount of million streams, so this is how much y'all gave him in terms of advances. Some companies have forgiven some of those advances, right? So if you're with Sony, if you're a legacy artist that's over 20 years in and you haven't taken any advances in 20 years, those balances are pretty much forgiven. So now he could be generating royalty income now and is not even being privy to it, to be honest.
What's we touched on this on another podcast. What's really crazy is that the people who are currently in charge of migrating this information into the digital space, because now everything's going digital.
Yeah.
Everything has a portal now so that you could actually see everything going on. But the issue is when creating these portals, when migrating things over, if everything is not placed in the appropriate box, if everything isn't listed right or correctly, it's not going to generate the right information. And there's a lot of employees working at these record companies that are not privy to something as simple as what was the title of that album, who was the artist. They're putting it in wrong boxes because they don't know. Some of them weren't even around when these albums came out.
This is real.
If it's a different genre of music that they're used to, it's regular employee shit. It's just a job. And if they're doing the job incorrectly, it's gonna hurt you. If they're trained a certain way or trained on an old system, a lot of these employees that were around when they were messing with your music and logging it and recording it and putting it in certain places for payment, they're no longer there. It's been 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah, almost 30 years. 30 years.
A lot of these employees that was working on your projects and working on the A&R administrative things, they're not there anymore. They don't know your music. They don't know how much percentage you're supposed to get. They don't know these things. So when those people are gone, they leave the label, they continue to pursue careers in other areas, and you have these newer hires that's doing the job that may have not been trained properly, or the system has changed because now it's digital and they're not fully versed in taking things from the old and putting them into the new. It affects you, and it's a sad case. And then in this case, it could be costing you thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And then here's the other question, Jug. Where is the money? Where is it? Is it still sitting there somewhere?
Yeah, it's sitting in their escrows accounts. Like that's what they basically they're banking on this. They're banking on that you do not collect this money. Like this is the money that's just coming in that you're just not collecting. And listen, we just did a illustration on one streaming platform. That's just Spotify. We're not talking about Apple Music, Deezer. We're not talking about Tidal. We're not talking about any of those other platforms that he may be getting plays on. Right? We're just talking about Spotify. So the labels are gonna get paid from these streaming platforms. Guaranteed. Every month. They're gonna get paid. Right? So every month, his music is streaming, that labels are being paid. The question is, how is he getting paid? Because we know that his contracts were done before the streaming era. We know that, right? So they could be giving him at the old rates, right? But they're supposed to be giving him a fair market value rate as well. He can negotiate that as a very big legacy artist. So he can negotiate a higher rate because there's nothing in his contracts that covers for streaming. But he has to initiate that. You know what I'm saying? Like, he has to contact the label, he has to contact the royalty department, someone has to contact it on his behalf, and they have to start to initiate that process. If that's not being initiated, I know from a Sony aspect, you have to do that because that's something that we've gone through ourselves, and you have to initiate that, and you have to go through that process of getting your account set up, getting your portal set up, and a lot of artists aren't doing that. They're not just going to pay you your royalties because you're old. Because a lot of the issues that we've come across, like you said, was that because they were changing so many people across the years, the administration is no longer accurate. So because the administration isn't accurate, they're not just going to send you the money.
Right. You're right.
They're not just going to send it to you. So you have to get to the labels. You have to initiate contact with the labels and their royalty departments, and then you have to set up new payment information, new pay information, and you have to set that up, and then you have to start over. Yeah, essentially, you got to start over. And I think artists got to start doing that about every 2 to 3 years to kind of make sure that their information is on tack. It's intact rather. And if you're like moving, say you're a person that moves from state to state, or you've changed your address a few times, you got to contact the labels.
Or you change. A lot of people change their publishing companies.
Yeah, companies. Yeah,
they change the companies. They change companies of their own entertainment or production. And if you're not contacted, just like you move when you move and you no longer associate with the bank that's in your neighborhood, you got to give them all your updated information, your driver's license. You got to change all those things over. You're moving from state to state. It's the same thing, and it's another thing that I wanted to point out is that, do these record labels go back in their accounting? How far back do they go? Because I know that in some of these portals that you check for your royalty statements, it doesn't go back to
like 4 years.
So what happened to the money that you did not get to claim before? Is it still there? Is it rolled over, or is it gone? So there's a lot of questions when it comes to the whole accounting, auditing. It's a spooky game.
And listen, it's more than that. It's just watching these guys because they're on the grind. And granted, they found different ways to make their money. Tours, movies, so forth. And we've seen this in real time. We've seen that these guys are able to go book shows, 10, 15, 20, $100,000, a night, and they get used to that money because it's immediate. You know what I'm saying? They're not looking about this royalty money. That royalty money is like, people ain't really checking for that. But when you start to get into the autumn of your career, and if you have a good catalog, like he has a good catalog. He has a good catalog with features, a good catalog of records. He has a bunch of albums out, a bunch of
joint
collaborations with Wu-Tang and so forth and so on. That's legacy music. Like, this is music that kind of marked the time that it's going to be timeless. They're going to be playing for the rest of our lives.
Right. So
the truth of the matter is that it's supposed to give him a decent income stream every month.
Right.
Like, that's the reality of it. Like, he should be in a situation where he's getting, maybe 6 figures a month, right? Like, just based off of that catalog and what's going on with that catalog or more, it's just somebody has to make sure that he's getting that business taken care of. Somebody has to go back through those contracts and see what his percentages were. They got to go back to each song and make sure that his writer's credits got the right shares on those things, because that's another thing too. Because remember back then, no, whoever put it in first, they didn't check to see if the splits was right. It's whoever puts it in first, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy because the same way a lot of us expect professionals to do their job correctly. You know, and you and I know that people are people, meaning people make mistakes all the time at the job. You know, for whatever reasons, whether it's you're not following up and doing what you're supposed to do, you're not fully qualified, or you just had a bad day and you just feel like I'm not doing work today. You know, we've all been there. But imagine that same attitude, or imagine that same thought process when it comes down to your money. You're inputting this information so that you could get paid properly. And we looked at certain accounting statements, and there was information that's not only incorrect. We're on records that we
Don't
didn't
belong
do
to
it.
us. Yeah. Like, yeah.
And we're only saying we could only imagine if vice versa the other way around. Like, what is this? We're not on this record. Fix that. Like, that producer needs to be getting paid properly.
Yeah.
Y'all need to fix all of this stuff. And if you don't find these things out on your own, if you don't take the initiative to get these royalty statements, or to call the royalty departments and really be persistent, because you'll be left on a hold or voicemails or weeks and weeks and nobody contacts you. If you're not persistent, you could be losing out on a whole lot of money. And it's really a sad situation. Like, it's incompetency at its finest.
Look, I don't think it's intentional, but I think it's in business, and you and I know this. You got to check it. It's incumbent on you to make sure that you're keeping track of what's going on, because there's nobody that's going to look out for your best interest but you. And point blank, period. And that's a lesson to every artist that's out here trying to do the thing right now. This is one of the things that I really like about the independent movement right now. For every artist who is new or old, they should be releasing independent music just so that they can understand where all of the money's going.
Just for research purposes.
Yeah. Like, just so that you kind of understand, because a lot of artists don't understand where the money is going, and you will never understand where all the money is owed if you do not own 100% of a record and operate as a label for your own music. Then you start to realize, oh, we get all of this money from streaming on the master side. Right. Oh, this is what we get when we sell physical copies. Mm-hmm. Oh, this is what the profit margins look like. Like, you're not going to understand that. You're not going to be able to see what it is in real time, and then you can't apply it to the label. So now when you go to the label and you go, hey, we moved X amount of million copies, you know how much it generated.
Right. You have a reference point.
Yeah.
So when the label tells you, oh, that didn't generate, you could be like, bullshit.
Bullshit, yeah. Bullshit. We know what it generated.
We know.
And if we're talking about legacy artists who are basically sold 2, 3, 4 million records at the old retail royalty rate, right? The retail, the old $12.98, or the Sam Goody CD price of $18.98. You know what I mean? Like, we know you guys generated hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yo, we've seen royalty statements that have not moved in years, number-wise. But the moment we press them, the moment we gotta check this out, and you start seeing it moving. So you're telling me that in over 15, 20 years, this number's not moving? And all of a sudden, when we decide to press you, we starting to see some movement. Now the numbers are changing. Yo, these record companies, you guys gotta be on top of them, man.
It's all fugazi. It's all fugazi, and it's all cap. And we're trying to make people understand that it's all, like, if you're not on top of this thing, So this is where you're going to have a lot of the problems. So I want to make sure people are understanding. And look, a lot of these concepts are in our books, The Musician's Guide to Music Publishing, right? The Musician's Guide to Forming Your Own LLC and the Musician's Guide to Copyrights. You know, you got to understand what's going on, and you have to start educating yourself on what's happening in these situations and start understanding where the money is going. So in a Method Man or even Snoop Dogg's case, I know that they probably already had their publishing deals.
Mhm.
Listen, even in you guys publishing deals, you guys have to be aware of what's going on, because way back when we were administering our own publishing, you know, we were I think we were contacted one time by a we might have been contacted back in the day by, I think it might have been, don't misquote me on it, but it may have been Sony ATV, and they were trying to get the split on a record that we did with one of the Wu-Tang members. And when I started to kind of peel back the layers and, you know, get the information, and then I started to figure out, like, okay, who's administering their mechanicals, what that publishing company had done. So I was thinking that there's a major publishing company and that they were collecting all of the money in the mechanicals themselves. They weren't doing that. What they did was they basically subcontracted the Harry Fox agency to collect that portion of it on their behalf. So here you are now as a person who gets a publishing deal, give them 20%
For
to
them
collect the money,
to outsource it anyway.
for them to outsource it and collect it from another person, for them to do the collection for them at a lower rate when you could have went directly to them.
Yep.
This is the game. And this is what people have to make sure that they're paying attention to, right? Even in the situation with the Song Trust, right? You have the Song Trust and you got someone like the MLC. Song Trust does the same thing. Anytime you register a song with Song Trust, it registers it directly, automatically with the MLC, right?
Mhm.
But the MLC doesn't charge you what Song Trust charges you.
Yeah.
So you have to make the decision as if you want to deal with these entities yourself, or if you want to pay the extra to make those entities, you know, collect it for you.
Right.
But at least you know. If
At least
you
you know.
know, then you can say, okay, you know what's going on. I can go directly to the MLC, and then they'll collect it at a lower rate than if I go to Song Trust,
Right.
right?
But of
And
course, when you make those decisions, you kind of you gotta give and take what you gain and what you lose.
right. And you have to understand that what that company is supposed to be doing, because that company is supposed to collect not only that, but collect some of performance stuff and some of mechanical stuff and the other things. So it's
Right.
kind of all encompassing. But you have to make those decisions as an artist. But if you don't know, then you're going to be on these shows, on these platforms, talking about you never got no streaming income. And it's like, come on, man. Like, you guys making too much money for these guys, talking about you ain't making no money.
Yeah, man. And at this point of the game, and it's a bit embarrassing too, you know, because we're supposed to be the leaders right now, showing the next generation what to and not do.
Yeah.
And for people to still be getting got like this, you know, it's just like, damn, you know, like I purposely would say, like, yo, stop going to the majors, man. Like, really stay independent. Really watch what you got going on. Because it's definitely much easier to, you know, have your record distributed directly and know what's going on. You know, but at the same time, even these distributors, you got to keep an eye on them as well, because yeah, we see these Spotify numbers, but how do we know that's actually real?
And
You
let's
know,
be honest.
and like Jug used to always say, that's just money on the dash. All that means is that that's the number that shows you on your screen. But is that for real? Is that number accurate? Or is that somebody just typing in some random numbers just to appease you? You don't know.
The other thing too is that all of those independent distributors are not paying the same rates.
That's another thing. They're not.
They're not. They don't pay the same rates, if I can look at that, and I can look at, because we've released music on we were early because we were releasing music. We were getting music pressed when it was, Europa disc and all of that stuff, and we were going to disc makers and all of that stuff. This is just dating us, but you know, when we were getting vinyls made and all this type of stuff from only, and then we were going to like CD Baby and that type of stuff. That has a different rate than when you go to DistroKid, right?
Well,
Like they don't pay the same.
but why? Like,
It might be the deal that they made. You see what I'm saying? It's because everybody's an aggregator and everybody has to make a deal with who they're aggregating the music with.
so why does Spotify pay at this rate, but Tidal or YouTube
Yes.
or these they pay at another rate?
See what I'm saying? Like that's a whole other thing. It's what you negotiate.
And then why do independent artists get paid at a certain rate versus artists that signed to a major? Why they get at a different rate? Because you can see that, you know, we've done both.
Right.
And we were able to see the numbers and say, hey, that number is different from when we were used to doing it this way and that way. And we jumped around to various different distributors to see what's going to be the best, who's going to be timely, you know, just, you know, how things are distributed. Is it being distributed on time, evenly across the board, you know, what percentage, you know, and we got a chance to look under the hood for a lot of distributors, and we can see that, yo, they're all different in some case, and it's mind-boggling. Like you could get paid on this amount, but for the same amount over here, the number's totally different.
Totally different number.
And you'd figure that it would be a standard across the board, but apparently that's not the case.
And that's what it's all designed to do. It's designed to confuse. That's what it's designed to do. It's designed to do that. So like I could say for, you know, pretty confidently saying that, okay, the music that we had distributed on CD Baby pays a slightly higher Spotify streaming rate than on DistroKid.
Right.
I can kind of say that, like, you know, I can say that confidently. But of course it doesn't compare to what we may get paid from Sony to Orchard. Right. It's like that's different.
That's different.
You know what I'm saying? And again, we have both experiences. We have experiences with major distributor and an independent distributor. And it's just different. You know, the way your records are handled are different. Your records are going to get lost in the source. You know, if you're going through your, you know, the independent joint, you're gonna have to put heavy money in your promotion. Whereas if you're going through the major, it might be a little easy to get an editorial playlist.
Maybe a little extra support. So you got to weigh the pros and cons, you know.
And I think that's probably the main thing. So I think really like the larger takeaway now is the labels are stealing the money. And when I say stealing the money, let me clarify that. Because anytime somebody's holding your money and you're not able to get any interest from it, your money's being stolen. Like that's point blank period. If you can't get a 1% or 5% from the stock, 10% from the stock market, if you can't get your money and you can't get your money to work for you, you're essentially your money's being stolen from you. So if you're not getting paid out your royalties and they're sitting on it,
yeah, and they're not informing you that hey, we got your money over here.
They're not telling you that. They're not telling you that they could be sitting on tens of thousands of dollars.
They're not telling you an email, sending you snail mail. Hey, we got some money for you. Come reach out to us. They're not doing that.
No, they're not doing that. They're not doing it, and they're not going to do it. And that's the thing that's probably the most disturbing for me is that they're not telling you that. And this is money that you can be having working for you in the background. Like this is money that they're sitting on that they got basically interest-free loans. Like that's not right. Like it's not right. So you know, again, I encourage all the legacy artists, if this happens to get to you, all the legacy artists that have been in this game for a long time, and you're not seeing any royalty statements or you're not seeing any royalty checks or whatever, and you know, if you've moved around a few times, and you know, you got to reinitiate your relationship with these royalty departments, and you have to make sure that your stuff is being set up, and you have to comb through all of your statements with a fine-tooth comb. Yeah, and you can't let too much time pass because this money will just evaporate, and they'll be like, "Oh, we don't have access to it." most financial institutions don't have to keep records past 7 to 8 years.
After that, it's gone.
Yeah. But go to your bank and ask for a bank statement from 10 years ago. See if you can get it. See if you can get it.
And where does that money go? Into somebody's pocket.
Yeah. It's like they're not, from what I'm understanding, they're not legally bound to have to hold stuff past 7, 8 years. It's the same way as people dealing with credit situations. If it goes, say if you have a default on the credit situation that goes past a certain time,
right,
it's charged off, and nobody cares about it. It's gone. And that's how financial institutions work. You know what I mean? So people have to realize, like, listen, don't play around with these folks. Have them sitting on your money. Somebody like Meth or somebody like Snoop, who has like long catalogs. These guys' catalogs are like phenomenal catalogs.
And
it's supposed to be generating millions of dollars. Point blank, period.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're an independent artist, you need to learn this stuff fast.
Real fast.
Because, you stumble on, you don't want to learn it when you get a hit and it's already been 10 years past that's not the time to be learning that. You want to learn that now. And to be honest with you, the game is going to change again. Technology is going to change again.
AI is going to make it.
Oh, AI is getting involved now, and it's going to switch again. And it's going to be very interesting to see at what rate, and like they're going to be using the records that you've recorded as a template for new records coming out. Shouldn't you be entitled to something? Isn't that sampling your material?
The other portion of it, because part of that interview, when we're talking with Meth, he was talking about AI, and he wants to understand if they use, say I wanted a Method Man feature and I use his voice, could he get paid for that? Right? Like, that's the next level for us. You know what I'm saying?
That's the next level. But what's going to happen is, if these record labels are as slick as I think they are, when they sign you as an artist, it's going to also probably sign their likeness and everything having to do with the artist. It's going to be almost like another kind of 360. So yeah, we can have you as an artist, and the day that you don't feel like recording and don't feel like showing up, oh, that's okay. We're going to make the records that we want to make using your voice. You don't want to make this record? Have a seat. We own your IP. We own this entire thing. So we'll just make as many records as we want using your voice and tone and cadence, and we'll have you rapping on what we want you to rap on. If you want to have you rapping on a country record, we're going to do that. If you feel that the market is for that, we're going to do that. We're going to have...
listen to what you just fucking said. Like, you essentially just said that these motherfuckers is going to have ownership to your digital copy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they can take your image. And I just send you some shit with Casanat and those guys.
Yeah.
That was like dark fantasy. And you're like, wait, what's this? Right? Like look at these images. Right?
Yeah. On point.
And so I can take your image.
Mm-hmm.
I can animate it, or I can make it into a video.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I can take your cadence. I can take your vocals. I can have AI write the song, or I can get with my best songwriters, have them basically put the lyrics in, put your voice on it. And we're making records without you.
Without you. Go have a seat. We got this.
It's a scary time. Like this is a scary time. And I think we have to make sure that we're paying attention. And what artists should not let happen is don't let the AI shit happen what happened with streaming. Meaning, don't let the labels just come and determine what your royalty rate would be to use your cadence,
right,
or the royalty rate to use your voice, or to use your visuals. Like, don't let them determine that. You know what I'm saying? Because if you let them determine it, you're going to have the same issue like you have with streaming, where they determine what the rate of streaming is, which was totally off. Because, listen, we're listening to too much music, man. They make it seem as if music is not being consumed, but it's being consumed more than ever.
Joker, I'll even say this: if they ever allow the labels to do this, I guarantee it will be at a lower rate.
Always.
Because in their argument, they're going to say, we're not using you. You're not physically leaving your house to come and record. You're sitting on a beach somewhere and we gave you money for that. Go relax. We got it from here. We're doing the work.
Y'all not doing no work. AI doing the work. Y'all ain't doing shit. Like that's the joke. The joke is you guys are gonna make it seem like y'all doing the work. Y'all not doing the work. Y'all just prompt engineering.
Ain't no different from you going to self checkout and then asking for a freaking tip. You know what I'm saying? The game is crazy.
This shit fucked up, man. Like,
Yeah.
when you think about this shit, it really fucked up, man. Like this is bad, man, for a lot of folks. Like, you know, it's like you look at the situation. It's like I'm looking at some of these AI generators, bro, image generators, and it's amazing. It's amazing what we're seeing. Photorealistic. It's amazing. Like just use anyone. Use Runway. Use any one of those joints. Use Mid-Journey. Use anyone, and just if you put in the right prompts, and you'd be amazed at what you're seeing. And now, if you're making reference to certain people, it's going to look like them. Like it's looking like them, and it's like I'm like, whoa! Like this is like we can literally make whole music videos without you.
They're gonna get this thing in such a way that it's going to eliminate video directors, video editors, music producers, music engineers. It's going to be a whole shift. And if you're not offering something more than just the standard, if you're not a producer offering more, if you're not an engineer ordering, that got more going on to offer, you're going to be left in the cold. Because the way that this shift is happening, it's going to remove a lot of jobs. We're already seeing the massive layoffs and the removal of a lot of executives in the music business as is. So they're already removing people. It's turning into tech companies, these so-called record labels.
Yeah.
It's turning into tech companies. So once they got this AI thing under wraps 100%, it's only a matter of time before the effects are going to be dramatic. It's going to be something we've never seen before. It's going to remove people. It's going to remove entire industries. And when that happens, watch out. And I'm not saying this to scare you out. It's just more of a you got to see what's happening, what's coming, and you got to be able to adjust. And you got to be able to do the knowledge and understand what's happening and figure out a way to position yourself so when it does happen, you'll be okay. You can be in front, profit, and maintain. Because if you're not, it's gonna be. If you look at history, it's already happened, and it's just repeating itself. Wherever it's the internet boom, wherever it's streaming, whatever the case may be, these things happen. There's a shift, and every 10 to 20 years, there's a shift. And if you're not positioned, good luck.
I look at this thing too, right, Mike? I was it's funny because when we talk about AI, it's like, they want to use AI for all the creative shit, but when we telling them why don't they use AI to help reconcile these damn royalty books, right? And get the shit right. You know what I'm saying? Like, why'd you do that? But in our particular case, I did utilize AI to go through our statements.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And people are going to say, what do you mean? Like, I created a GPT and, basically fed it the information on, what to look for in terms of what type of rates, what our contracts look like, what should we be getting paid for the first 500,000 units, and then give it sales data, etc., historical sales data, and then also had it come through, look for discrepancies, right, and then had it look for areas where we should have gotten paid more, where it should have been escalated.
Mhm.
Duplicate situations, then that didn't belong to us. Like, this is how we're supposed to be using AI for the things that we don't, quote unquote, 100% understand.
Right.
You're supposed to use that to analyze the data. It sent me back recommendations.
Mhm.
What should we be looking out for? How we can negotiate higher rates. And this is the stuff that we use now, and then we use it, and then we may send to our counsel. If we need to send to our counsel, then have an intelligent conversation with your legal team so
Right.
that now you know what you need to do.
Right.
And then now you can go against the enemy, right?
But
I don't want to call them the enemy.
but before you even go that far, and then you can have the AI summarize it in a language that you understand.
Yeah, you understand. Yeah.
Get rid of all of the jargon, the lawyer legal jargon that normally flies over the majority of our heads, and all the fluff, and just give you the straight raw that you can understand. And even that is alone is just
It's a game changer.
a game changer.
Yeah, it's a game changer because now we take out that language barrier, that knowledge gap.
Right.
And that's really how they're getting us. Is
Yeah.
that gap, that knowledge gap that they get us on this. And if you're not a person that's already versed in it, I encourage everybody, listen, you should be playing with this thing. You should be playing with all of the image generators. You should be playing with the Audios and Sunos and all of those things that are making music. You should be practicing how to recreate your music using solely prompts.
Mhm.
You're supposed to be understanding that because that's where it's going, right? So the same way that we used to sit by a keyboard and make a beat, we're supposed to be able to make a beat using a prompt. We're supposed to be knowing what the key is, what the pitches, the tempo, the styles, what we want it to go in terms of, you know, the rhythm, etc. We're supposed to be able to articulate that in words so that now we can have the AI work for us and create the things that we would normally create using keyboards. It's still in our heads. It's still our creativity.
It's still coming from you.
It's still coming from you. So we have to kind of get into that situation and then start using these tools to make sure that we don't get wiped out, and using the tools to make sure that we can even the playing field because again, the labels is playing a certain type of game, and that's just the labels. We're not talking about Hollywood. We're not talking about none of those other industries
Mhm.
because that's another part of a conversation. But this is what they're doing. So we have to make sure that we're being versed in that. So for everybody who's been listening, we want to make sure that you guys are really, really, really paying attention to the label stuff. So if we have to recap,
Mhm.
recap is if you're a legacy artist or if you're an artist that's ever had any music released on a label in the last 10 to 15 years and you haven't seen any money, you have to initiate contact with their royalty departments. You have to make sure that you have an artist portal. And when I say an artist portal, it's not just a recording artist. It's you as a producer, songwriter, right? If you're credited as a producer on these records, then you have supposed to have an artist portal. Um, for you as a songwriter, you have to make sure that all of your publishing stuff is taken care of, right? And
Mhm.
again, we're gonna recommend the Musician's Guide to Music Publishing. Our other book, The Ultimate Guide to Forming Your Own Music LLC. And then, of course, the Musician's Guide to Music Copyrights. We have those. You got to make sure you get those from arkatechbeats.com or Amazon, if whatever float your boat. Digital copies for me a little bit better. But these are the things that's going to help you to understand what's going on. We've kept those very short, kind of concise, so you kind of have an idea of what the business is. Then you got to use your AI tools to make sure that you're being able to, whatever you don't understand, you can have things being broken down to you in layman terms using an AI software, whether it be Gemini, whether it be GPT, Rock. You can just upload stuff to it and just say, hey, summarize it for me in maybe fourth grade language.
Right. Yep.
And we have to use these tools. If we're not using these tools, you're going to be out here in the cold. So once you set up your situation with the labels, you have to initiate your connection with them, making sure that you can get your statements, go through your statements. Then you have to initiate your payment information, or your payment details. You have to give them all of that, and they are not going to pay you until those things are set up properly.
Right.
They're not going to.
And you got to check for discrepancies.
Yeah.
You know, you got to
And
check for percentages and they compare them from record to record.
and you got to have a hand in your contracts, because you got to have your contracts, because they're going to go back through your contract, because before they start to update your portal, they're going to go through your contracts, and they're going to find out what you were paid as far as advances, and they're going to look at all of those historical records, and they're going to apply those things to your account to see if you're recouped, if you didn't recoup, and what that looks like. So you have to make sure you know that as well.
But that's even if they could find your contracts in a lot of scenarios too.
That's a whole nother.
Especially when it comes to legacy artists, you know, where are these contracts? What warehouse are they in? You know, is someone actually footing it to that location to climb up on the shelf and then look for your name and pull it out and sit there and try and find the physical paperwork, and then to look through, find the record, look through it to find the number. I mean, it's a daunting task that nobody really wants to do. So you really have to do your due diligence. You really need to check what you have, check for discrepancies. Why does this record you're getting paid more, but you're on this record 4 or 5 times and you're getting paid less? You exercise some common sense and say, hey, this doesn't look right. Let me investigate. Let me contact these royalty departments if need be. Let me get my attorney involved if need be for a little extra muscle. And in some cases, it's not even helpful. You know, I'm sad to say, because there are attorneys and lawyers that have relationships with these record companies, and they don't want to ruffle their feathers because they have other deals and other things got going on. So it's a very funny business. The network is very scary. You don't know who knows who. So you kind of have to hold a lot of things close to the chest. So we just recommend that you pay attention and ask questions. And when you're unsure of something, there are a lot of tools like AI that you can use to help get the information you need.
And when you're contacting these royalty departments, you have to be very diligent, because you can send out correspondence to them and they don't respond.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to send out 2, 3, 4 times to get a response, you know, because you have to realize you're sending something to an inbox that's being manned by somebody, right? Now, if anybody has ever worked in corporate and understand how an email box works, if you've ever been there, you know, sometimes people act like they cleared out the box but didn't do the work.
Did they? Yep.
Right? Like, this is the reality of it. Like, when you're dealing with these kind of inquiries that are coming in by the thousands, there's somebody on the other side who has to go through these inquiries one by one.
Yeah.
And a lot of times their productivity is going to be, you know, measured on how much of the box gets cleared. And sometimes these folks are clearing the box without actually doing anything. Or maybe the inquiry that came to that particular representative is too difficult and they don't want to deal with that. So they just kind of move it along. And this is what happens.
Happens, yep.
You know, so let's not sit here and act like, okay, I sent an email but nobody sent anything. You got to keep, it's your money.
You got to keep at it.
Yeah, they're betting on that you will not do the work. That's what they're betting on. They're betting on that you will not understand, you will not follow up, you will not escalate. Because you won't do it, they're going to run away with your money.
It's like getting a phone call and you're too busy to answer it. And in your mind, you're like, if it's an emergency, they'll text me or leave me a voicemail. And they don't. So you're like, oh, well, it's not important.
Yeah.
It's that same kind of thinking. You have to be persistent in contacting them and making sure that you get the information you need and to correct them. You know, if you feel something is wrong, you got to hold it to them. You can't just take what they say as is if you don't understand something. Now, I'm not saying you be argumentative because that doesn't solve anything, but people also have to be able to articulate themselves in a manner of professionalism. When you're talking to people, um, if a person feels even threatened or anything, it doesn't give them any extra intention, or doesn't give them any extra reason for them to help you. you know,
Yes. Yeah.
just think about the average person at a job, and that person gets a little lip, a little somebody aggravates them. I ain't helping them fuck that. Like, I ain't doing this. I'm moving it along. And this is the era we're living in, man. We're living in an era of people are not being 100% professional. Things are happening in front of our eyes. Mental illness is real. People are
All-time
leaving
high.
their
Yeah.
people are leaving their jobs like on the drop of a hat,
Yep.
and being replaced with people who are not fully qualified. It's a lot going on. So you have to be persistent in getting the things you need, because this is your job, your money, your career, your legacy, and your kids' money. At the end of the day, if you have children.
If you got children, yeah, that's real stuff too. Because if you've been a part of these big records, that's legacy right there. I know folks don't really understand that those things really, in times like these, you don't want to play with your income. Let's just put it
Right.
that way.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you see what's going on out here. Don't let anybody play with your money outside here. Everybody make sure that you're checking us out at everything at architectbeats.com. New YouTube at Architect Beats Pod. Make sure that you're subscribing to that new channel if you've been on the old one. We've been putting more music on our main channels, so just make sure that you're looking at that for any music. If you're looking for music, there's more music out there. Before we get out of here, Mike, Drake dropped No Face last a few days ago. What you think about that? New Drake record.
Listen.
Listen. You know that's the stimulus package. You got to talk about Drake. If you don't talk about Drake, you can't get any traction in the music business. You got to talk about Drake. You got to click your heels and mention Drake 3 times, and make that, and that'll work with the stimulus package. So if you're a new rapper coming out, if you're an old rapper that wants to get some traction, you got to mention Drake.
I'm more curious on the reaction. I'm more curious on what's going to happen. To me, at this point, like, Drake is going to deliver musically, in my opinion, for the most part. But it really comes down to how is the public going to handle that? Are they going to accept it, or are they going to move on, or are they like, where is the general public when it comes to Drake at this moment? Is it the right time? Does he still need to wait? Does he need to put out more music? It's just, for me, I'm kind of just sitting back and kind of just watching to see how things are going to play out. And it's very interesting, to see. It's very interesting that an artist can put out records, and everybody's having a good time and enjoying it for the most part, and then all of a sudden the person is no longer the person, and according to the audience. So it's like, okay, so then let's see what happens then. Let's see what happens when he puts out the next record. Let's see what happens when the people you're relying to put on a record don't put out a record.
Because he's not putting that record. And that's the thing that I really want to touch on, is that they put all of their faith in homie, and he's not putting on no music, and he's not doing no features, and he ain't doing none of that.
So let's see what happens. Like, is music going to be boring again? Like, let's see.
That's what it feels. You see these numbers, so you see what these numbers looking like. These numbers looking crazy, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like, again, it's like, okay, bro, you came.
Shout out to Joe Budden. His Pump It Up just went gold. Is that accurate?
Listen, it should be more than gold.
But that ties back to what we were saying earlier. Like
It's more than gold. I just think that he doesn't have anybody to go certify it. Like, you remember, you have to initiate the certification.
Yep.
See, saying that's another thing about initiating the certification. The
Yep.
label has to initiate the certification, and a lot of times they don't want to initiate the certification
because
then they're on the hook.
What the new numbers are.
Right. They don't want you to know what the numbers are.
Yeah.
So they don't want to. They don't. So that's another part of the reason why they drag their feet with the certification.
Yep.
Sometimes they use the certification for bragging rights, but now the certification is going to mean, hey, we owe you this much money on the platinum record.
Exactly, because there are certain albums that's out there that's been gold for years, and like, hold on,
yeah,
it's been 20 years.
Yeah,
that that artist been getting millions and millions of streams.
Yep,
they're selling vinyls, they're selling anniversary editions, they're selling a whole lot of stuff. This album is platinum. Knock it off.
Knock it off.
Knock it off. But in order for it to be verified and certified as platinum, somebody has to pay the money.
Yeah.
Do your auditing.
Yeah. So they got to pay RIAA to do the certification,
do the auditing, and double check those numbers.
Yep.
And then once that's done, then they could make the announcement, and then you're allowed to get your plaque. But if nobody is going to do that, then it's going to be, the numbers are going to be stuck where it is for 10, 20 years.
And I always felt that was a tactic for them to hide revenue.
Yep. Absolutely.
Like, oh, it only sold 500,000. No, it didn't.
No, it didn't.
No, it didn't.
In 20 years?
That song was gold when it released.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Dollar full of shit. Talk about he got a gold plaque. That record been gold. That record was gold when it came out. When you saw it in fucking You Got Served and they dancing at the end, that's a gold record.
A gold record.
Let's be honest. It's Just Blaze production. We know that shit has been a gold record. So let's cut the shit. At this point,
for all we know now, it's probably platinum.
Hell yeah, platinum. Because you got lesser records that go platinum. You got records that don't got no type of replay value that go platinum easy like that. So in this day it's A&A to streaming, let's stop it. Let's stop the nonsense and make it seem like as if this shit ain't go platinum. You know this shit went platinum. You know what I mean?
Funny accounting going on. A lot of funny business going on. We've seen statements where not only the numbers don't add up, the names ain't correct. Double entry in names to make it look like double dipping. I mean, there's a whole
like you took double in advance or some shit.
Wild.
It's wild. It's wild. It's so wild. It's wild.
Like for privacy, like I would pull the paper up and put it on here, but for privacy reasons, I'm not gonna do that. But it's just we've seen it firsthand what these record labels are doing. And we're not saying they're doing everything on purpose, but when you got somebody behind the desk who may not really know like how this thing works, or maybe they were trained not fully like properly, or they're not aware, or they're just tired. You know what I mean? They're working a 9-to-5 job. Maybe this is not something that they want to do. Maybe they want to be a rapper.
That should be real too. That's that be happening.
This is just a 9-to-5 job to them. And they're not inputting the numbers properly. They're not typing in the right things or putting it in the right column and category. And when it's time to pull the numbers, it's not being pulled properly. They're not seeing that this is the error. This is wrong.
You can't make this up, man.
Yeah, man. This is wild.
Yeah, you can't make it up. Like
some of the stuff, man. You were like, for real. Like nobody read this before they set this out. Nobody double checked this. Nobody does not see that this name is twice on the record, or these producers are not part of this record, or why is this record over here and not over there? Why is the name wrong on the album on the album? Why does it say this? Why is the artist name missing from this? What, like, come on, guys.
Only work here, man. Folks, check us out. ArkatechBeats.com. ArkatechBeats.store if you want beats and instrumentals. Make sure that you're picking up stuff. About to get crazy out here. Any parting words for the folks before we get out of here?
And pay attention.
Word. Pay attention.
Pay attention, man.
Pay attention so folks don't get y'all, man. Like this is the new this is the new robbery, man. Like, you guys are being robbed without a gun.
Broad daylight.
For real. Like, you know, like this is the worst type of situation where you just giving your stuff away and being robbed without a gun. And, like, you know what I mean? And people can take your money, and remember, they're taking your money and they're investing that money. They're making that money work. It's in stock market, wherever else, investments, and it's turning over hand over fist. And that could be your money that you could be doing the same thing with. And, you know, you got to initiate this contact. You got to get it going with all of these labels. If you got music on any of these labels, you got to make sure that you're initiating those contacts, making sure everything is up to date. So, you know, we've talked about that ad nauseum. Everybody, just, hey, stay safe out there. Until next time.
Peace.
Peace, y'all. Be safe out there.